So after the living room, this is where we arrived. The CUC, the Contemporary Urban Centre, just on the outskirts of town off Jamaica Street. The reality of it is that when we launched our first ever public services, we had no clue if we could even afford it. So what we did was we took the 12 of us that were in our living room and we all wrote down on a piece of paper anonymously the amount of money that we would be willing to tithe and give into this new church startup. And then we just simply added the numbers together. And if the number came in at a level that we could afford and pay the rent, we agreed that we would hire this space out.
Do you remember? We would meet on, I think it was about like the 4th floor. We had a room on the 4th floor, and Wayne Palmer would greet people at the door. He would put them in the lift. Then he would run up 4 flights of stairs to shake their hand when they came out the lift and welcome them to church. We were committed.
And another funny story about this very first venue is we thought we had made it because we bought a light. We purchased our very first light. And then after about 3 weeks, our light and the flight case that it was stored in, it totally got stolen. So we had to start from scratch all over again. So after the CUC, even though that we'd contracted with them for 12 months and put down a hefty deposit, decided to go bust on us without even telling us, we were scrapping round town looking for venues, and we arrived here at 001. We thought the place was massive. It had 88 seats.
Yeah. And if you were late for church, you had to do the walk of shame because the entrance into church was actually on the platform. So if the music had started or the preach started and you came in on the platform, and then you had to come and find your seat, and we called it the walk of shame.
Awkward. After a little while, we ended up here at the Liner Hotel. Looks like a boat, and it certainly smelled like a boat.
Yeah, and here we were told we could do no hospitality, so we kind of got creative, and we would bring in cold coffees, and we found a back door, and so once we snuck in 150 burritos and fed everybody, we had a great time here. And we also tried this place at the Crown Plaza.
But apparently, we were a little bit too loud. Didn't last very long. And of course, we also tried here at the Radisson Blu.
And the lift was so small. Do you remember the elevator was for 1 person only, and we'd have to get all the flight cases in, and then someone would have to stand on top of the flight cases to take them up to the 3rd floor. We did also have a Sunday at this place, the Grand Central, which was hundreds of years ago a Methodist church. However, it is not a Methodist church now. It was in fact the place that my parents got saved also. But yeah, it was a very unusual Sunday, the Sunday we met in there.
Sure was, because apparently whoever the guy was that had acquired the keys had stated that they didn't have a bank account and couldn't take any online transfer and would only want paying in cash. You try and get hundreds and hundreds of pounds out in cash on a Sunday. A cash point will only give you £200 at a go, right? So literally all the time whilst I was preaching, he was on a promise that we would pay him, and he was stood at the back of the hall with a pint of lager in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and then he'd put his cigarette down and make these money signs at me whilst I was preaching. It was crazy. Now, we were getting really used to bouncing around town, so much so we started to take the church on tour. We thought it would be a great idea, and we landed at the Marriott.
But that didn't work out for us either. And then we ended up here at the Capstone Theatre, and this is the place where church really began to grow. But they would not let us do water baptism, so we had to get really creative. And in fact, just on the other side of these railings, we put a pool outdoors. Then we rang the fire department up and we asked the fire department to come and fill the pool up, but they got called out on a job first, which meant we got the dregs of the barrel, which meant our pool for baptisms was gloopy, brown and horrible. So we had to empty that water and ring the entire church up and ask them to purchase bottles of water to bring to church to fill the pool, just so we could baptise a whole bunch of people that day.
I'm pretty certain that those that ended up getting baptised in the sparkling water, it had an extra effect for them. But actually, it was whilst we were doing church here at the Capstone Theatre that we felt that the Holy Spirit of God started to speak to our hearts about one day owning a place and a space that we could call home 24/7. And I'm just reminded, stood right here, of just the immense level of sacrifice that people really gave as they committed financially, massively, in order to raise approximately £250,000 cash over a 20-week period in order to create a deposit for the building that we now call home for Liverpool One Church. And I'm just reminded, man, how grateful I am for everybody that sacrificed to make where we are today a possibility. And think now how many have come to Jesus in this season because of your willingness to sacrifice. And it's that level of sacrifice and amazing volunteerism that we've seen not only at the Capstone Theatre, but at every single venue that Liverpool One Church has ever really used, that has got us to the place where we are today. The reality is that even everything that you see on a Sunday here at our Richmond Row site has only been made possible because there have been an amazing bunch of people that have literally not only sacrificed financially for this venue, but have literally sowed skills, time and energy into building it. I remember the day when we brought in diggers to knock down walls to create powerhouse and create a larger foyer area. I remember when we've laid carpet in the auditorium, plumbed in heating systems. Like, there's not a lot really that has been done and accomplished that hasn't been touched by the hands of the volunteers at Liverpool One Church.
Yeah, it was quite eventful because it literally was the people that built this church. When we moved into this space, it was a derelict, abandoned warehouse. It was grimy, it was unloved, and it took an absolute army of volunteers. And we had a plan, but to execute the plan, it took a lot of you people who were sitting in the room today. I can remember I'd not long been out of hospital and couldn't physically do a lot myself, but what I could do was I could flip burgers. And so every single night I would go to Iceland, I'd purchase 200 burgers, 200 sausages, 400 buns, and we set up a barbecue in the powerhouse room, and I would just cook every single night for all of the volunteers because there was people here building walls, painting walls, decorating. In fact, in that space over there where the bathrooms are, there were no bathrooms. I can actually remember the framework being built. And then people in there, 3-4 guys in a row with their laptops open on YouTube looking to how to build a toilet cubicle. And that's how we built the bathrooms that are today. In fact, it's how we built the whole church, I think, on YouTube in the main. But also, let me just say, underneath the stage area, there are many names we wrote on the floor of all the people, the family and friends that we would believe in would make this place their home, that would come to know faith in God. I can't tell you the amount of people who are here today that come up to me and say, hey, my name is underneath your stage. And honestly, I just think it's time that we found a bigger platform and wrote down way more names.
The reality is that we really sense and believe that the leading of the Holy Spirit for the direction of our church is now a new time and a new season where the word is it's time to get ready and prepare for the growth of the family that's about to come our way. That's why we are excited as we are starting to dream big. Dream big for a bigger venue, dream big for a bigger facility, something that is significant, so much so that even the city has to stand up and take note of it. We're in full faith that God has got a journey ahead of us that He's mapped out before the very foundation of the earth were even laid out, and we want to be a part of it. And I know that it's way bigger than something that we could ever accomplish on our own, but I am convinced of this: as we get ready to prepare our hearts again to move forward into all that God has got for us. It will only be made possible if we do the thing that we've always done, which is lead Liverpool One Church together with that same sense of volunteerism and sacrifice. Because if God is for us, then who can be against us? Now is the time to get ready again.